The smell of burnt sugar still follows me. Whenever it hits my nose, I'm back in that cramped apartment above the bakery, listening to my father's voice shake over the sound of men counting money at our kitchen table. Flour dust floated in the air like slow snow, sticking to the cheap curtains, the cracked tiles, my hair. I remember sitting on a wobbly chair, legs too short to touch the floor, pretending to do my homework while three men in dark coats spread cash and guns between the plates of cold pasta. My mother kept wiping the same clean spot on the counter, eyes fixed on the floor, like if she never looked at them they would disappear. But those men never disappeared. Only the people who owed them did. One of them, the boss back then, reached over, grabbed my chin in his thick fingers and turned my face up toward his. He smelled like tobacco and lemon cologne. His smile was wide, but his eyes were flat, empty. "Strong jaw," he said to my father in our language. "He'll be useful when he grows up, keep him close." I didn't know what useful meant yet. I only knew my father laughed a little too loud, like a man who had just been handed a life jacket made of stone. Years later, when people stepped aside in the street because they recognized me, I thought about that night. About how a boy pretending not to listen became the man everyone whispered about. They gave me names: El Santo, El Rey, the Gentleman, all those stupid titles that sound powerful until you're alone at 3 a.m., staring at your own reflection, and trying to remember the last time someone said your real name without fear in their voice. That night outside the restaurant, I was that same boy again. Small on the inside, pretending to be bigger than the men around me. Rain had just stopped, leaving the city shining under the streetlights, wet asphalt reflecting red and gold like spilled blood and melted jewelry. My driver killed the engine, and the sudden silence made my pulse sound louder in my ears. The boys in the front seats fell quiet too, waiting. They always waited for my signal to move, to talk, to breathe a little easier. I straightened my cuffs, feeling the weight of the watch on my wrist. It was heavy, a gift from a man who no longer had a wrist. Power is like that, it clings to you in gold and scars. "You sure about this place, Jefe?" Emilio asked from the passenger seat, eyes on the glowing sign of the restaurant across the street. Too many windows, too many cameras. He was right, the place was all glass and soft lights, the kind of spot where normal people celebrated anniversaries and first promotions, not where men like me met with enemies to talk business. I hated public locations like this, too exposed, too clean. "She chose it," I said, more to myself than to him. Just saying that out loud softened something in my chest. She chose it, and I trusted her. Lena had found the restaurant. "It's perfect," she had said that afternoon, standing in my office with her tablet in one hand, her hair pulled back tight like always. Neutral ground, cameras pointed at the sidewalk, not the tables. Staff paid under the table, no surprise, police friends, "You'll like it, I promise." I never liked anything that wasn't under my control, but when she said it, I almost believed I could. I checked the time again. 9:11 p.m. She was late, only by a few minutes, but Lena was never late. Not with me, not with anything. "She texted," Emilio asked. I unlocked my phone. The last message from her was 2 hours ago. "On my way, don't kill anyone before I get there." That stupid, crooked, smiley face. She always did that, adding softness to conversations full of knives. My lips almost twitched upward remembering it. Almost, I caught myself and cleared my throat. "No," I said, "nothing since 7. Emilio shifted in his seat, his hand unconsciously brushing the gun under his jacket. "You want me to send the boys inside first, check the exits?" "Not yet." I stared at the restaurant, at couples laughing behind the glass, clinking glasses over little plates of food that probably cost more than what my mother used to make in a week at the bakery. "We wait for her." He didn't argue, no one did when it came to her. They all thought they understood why I kept Lena so close. They saw the obvious things, her quick mind, how she could read a room in seconds, how she remembered every number, every face, every lie. She ran my schedules, my meetings, my money. She held passwords that could burn this whole city down. They called her La Secretaria, but that word was too small for what she really was. They didn't know the first time I saw her, she had blood on her shirt that wasn't hers. It was 3 years back. in a cheap office building we used as a front for a logistics company. One of my younger cousins had tried to skim money off a shipment. Old story, boring. I went down there because if you let the lie grow once it would grow again, and again, until you woke up surrounded by snakes wearing family names. I walked into the office, expecting fear, excuses, maybe tears. What I found was a girl, no, not a girl, a woman, standing between my men and my cousin, one hand pressed to his bleeding shoulder, the other raised like she could stop a bullet with the palm of her hand. "That's enough," she'd shouted, voice shaking but clear. "He talks, you listen, then you decide, otherwise this is not justice, this is just noise." She was wearing a cheap white blouse, now stained red. Her hands trembled, but she didn't step aside, even when I came closer. She looked me straight in the eye, something even my lieutenants rarely did. "Who are you?" I asked, more curious than angry. "Lena," she'd said, "I do your books, and you're about to kill an idiot who made a mistake but can still be useful to you. Let me explain, senor." Senor, not boss, not king, just senor, ordinary. For some reason that word cut deeper than any insult. She talked fast, clear. She laid out every number, every missing peso, how it happened, how it could be fixed, how killing my cousin would create a chain of problems longer than the ledger she had memorized. My men watched her like they were seeing a ghost do algebra. In the end, I spared my cousin, not because of blood but because she was right. After everyone left the office, I turned back to her. She was breathing hard, wiping her hands with tissues, leaving small pink streaks on her skin. "You know who I am," I said, not a question. She nodded. "Everyone here does." "And you still stepped in front of him," I tilted my head. "Are you stupid or just brave?" "Maybe both," she met my eyes again. "But my job is to protect your business. Your money is safer without a war in your own family. You pay me to think, so I thought." I don't know why, but I laughed. For the first time in weeks, I actually laughed. In that moment, with the smell of cheap coffee and iron in the office air, I decided something without realizing it. This woman was not replaceable. After that, Lena moved from the back office to the floor above my own, then into my daily life. My routines bent around her voice, her notes, her silent presence sitting in the corner of my meetings, watching everything. She never tried to impress me, never tried to get close the way other women did, flashing skin and perfume. She came with files, with solutions, with that ridiculous small smiley face in her texts when she thought I needed to breathe. I forgot, sometimes, that she had a life outside my world. Back in the car, staring at the restaurant windows, that thought hit me like a punch. Of course she had a life, friends, maybe family somewhere. She left at midnight some nights. She had to go somewhere. There were hours, empty hours in my day when she was not next to me. I just never pictured what that looked like. "Call her again," I told Emilio. He tried, the phone rang and rang, then went to voicemail. Again. My jaw tightened. The city outside suddenly felt too loud. A siren wailed in the distance. A couple ran past our car, laughing, the girls' heels clicking against the wet sidewalk. Normal people, living normal nights. And my assistant, my closest ally, my something, was late to a meeting with men who might want me dead. "What if they grabbed her?" Emilio said quietly. He knew I was already thinking it. "Those rumors about Rivera's crew." "Stop," I opened the door. Cold air rushed in, bringing the smell of wet pavement and cigarette smoke from someone nearby. My men in the second car reacted at once, stepping out, straightening their jackets, scanning the street with hands already halfway to their guns. "Stay behind," I told them. "If something's wrong, I don't want us walking in like a parade." I crossed the street alone, my shoes splashing through shallow puddles, my reflection breaking apart in the water with every step. The restaurant's soft music bled into the night when the door opened for a couple going out. Laughter spilled over me, and then disappeared as the door swung shut again. Through the glass, I scanned the room quickly. No obvious threat. No familiar tattoos, no men with the stiff backs of bodyguards. Just candles, white tablecloths, plates of food, too much happiness. And then I heard it, a sound I knew too well, but had never heard quite like this. Lena's laugh. It floated from a table near the back, warmer, lighter than the polite chuckles she gave in my office. For a second I thought my mind was playing tricks. Then I saw her. Her hair was down, loose around her shoulders, catching the light like a dark waterfall. The severe black suits she wore with me were gone. Instead, she had on a soft blue dress that made her look younger, almost innocent. She was leaning forward, eyes bright, listening to the man sitting across from her. He reached out and touched her hand, just a small, familiar gesture. Something hot and ugly tore through my chest. My first instinct was professional. Who is he? Did I clear him? Is this a setup? My eyes measured him automatically. Height, build, watch, hands, no visible weapon. Soft hands, not one of mine, not one of theirs, just a man. Smiling at her like she belonged to his world. My second instinct wasn't professional at all. It was violent, primitive, irrational. A tide rising fast, flooding the calm mask I wore. I felt my fingers curl into fists at my sides, nails biting into my palms. She threw her head back and laughed again at something he said. I had never heard her laugh like that in my office. With me, her smiles were small, careful, like she was always measuring their size. Here they were open, free. For a moment I didn't feel like a boss, or a king, or whatever title they used this week. I felt like that boy again, sitting in the smoky kitchen above the bakery, watching powerful men decide the value of his life in a language of numbers and threats. Powerless but pretending not to be. Someone bumped my shoulder as they walked past me into the restaurant. "Pardon," they muttered, not knowing who they'd just touched, not caring. The world inside that glass didn't know me. Or maybe it did and didn't care. My men were waiting behind me on the sidewalk, tense, hands hovering near their guns, eyes on my back. One word from me and the whole night would change. One word and that man touching Lena's hand might never finish his drink. I stood there outside the warm golden light, soaked in neon and rain, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. The sting of being left out of a life I paid for but didn't own. She looked happy. And that, more than anything, made the rage inside me twist into something sharp and painful I didn't know how to name. My phone buzzed in my hand. A new message from her lit up the screen. "On my way, 5 minutes, don't be mad, I'll explain." But she was already there, laughing at another man's joke, her fingers intertwined with his. And in that exact second, with the city breathing around me and my men waiting for orders, I realized something that scared me more than any rival, any bullet, any whispered threat. I didn't know if I was more afraid of losing her, or of what I might do to everyone in that room to make sure I didn't. My thumb hovered over her message while she laughed 20 meters away, under soft yellow lights that pretended my world didn't exist. "On my way, 5 minutes, don't be mad, I'll explain." My reflection in the glass looked like a stranger, jaw tight, eyes dark, rain still clinging to my hair. Inside, she brushed a lock of her own hair behind her ear, a little nervous gesture I'd seen 1,000 times in boardrooms and backrooms, but never with her shoulders that relaxed. Anger came first, hot, clean, simple, she lied to me. Then something dirtier slipped in under it, hurt. Not the kind you get from a bullet or a broken bone. The kind that makes your chest feel hollow, like someone reached in and scooped out the center. I typed fast. Traffic. Through the window, I watched her phone buzz on the table. She frowned for a second, lips pressing together, then picked it up. Her eyes flicked to the time. She hesitated, thumb hovering above the screen. The man across from her said something, smiling, and she smiled back, small and apologetic, before answering me. "Yeah, almost there, order a drink for me." "Almost there." I stared at the lie glowing on my screen, while she was right there in my line of sight, in a blue dress I had never seen before. Emilio stepped up beside me on the sidewalk, close enough that only I could hear him. "Jefe, table's not ready yet, they say 10 minutes. Kitchen's behind, 2 exits, one into the alley, one through the bar." He followed my gaze to the window. "You see something?" I locked my phone and slid it into my pocket. My voice came out calmer than I felt. "Nothing, she's stuck in traffic, we wait." He nodded and went back to bark quiet orders at the men. No one questioned why my jaw looked like it was carved from stone. They were used to my bad moods. They thought tonight's storm in my eyes was for Rivera, not for a woman in a blue dress with her hair down. If I told them the truth, some of them would laugh later, in bars I didn't go to. The untouchable boss, eaten alive by jealousy like any stupid kid. I had seen what it looked like when powerful men let their emotions own them. My father, red-faced and desperate, begging that old boss for another week to pay. The man had smiled, sweet as poison, and slapped his face in front of my mother. My father never really stood up straight after that. I swore that night that if I ever held power, I would never use it to humiliate the people who depended on me. Not in public, not where they couldn't defend themselves. That promise was the only reason I didn't walk in there, drag Lena away from that table by her arm, and let the whole restaurant remember what fear tasted like. Instead, I pressed my palm flat against the cool glass like a kid outside a toy store, then pulled the door open and stepped into their world. Warmth and sound wrapped around me at once, low music, the clatter of dishes, the soft murmur of conversations that had nothing to do with guns or money or blood. A waiter in a crisp white shirt looked up and gave me a practiced smile. "Buenas noches, señor, Tine Reserva." "I do," my voice snapped back into the smooth register I used for strangers. "Private room, name is Santos." He checked the list, nodded, and gestured with a polite little bow. "Of course, they're preparing it now, if you'd like to wait at the bar." "I'll walk around," I cut in, "stretch my legs." He stepped aside, none the wiser. Normal clients came in all the time, men in suits with heavy watches, women in dresses like small oceans. To him, I was just another one. As I moved through the room, everything in me shifted into that hunting calm I had built over years. My feet remembered the spacing of tables, emergency exits, where someone could hide a weapon. My eyes brushed over faces without seeming to, cataloguing age, posture, the way they held their forks, their drinks. Who was drunk, who was tense, who looked up too often. Lena's table was near the back, half hidden by a tall plant and a curve in the wall. Smart choice for privacy. She always thought 3 moves ahead, even when she was giving herself a night off. I slowed when I reached the bar, resting my fingers on the polished wood like I was deciding between wines, not between violence and patience. Her voice floated to me in pieces. "No, I sleep fine," she was saying. "I'm just busy, that's all." The man laughed, low and easy. "Everyone in this city says that, busy, like it's a disease. You work for a logistics firm, not the president." Logistics firm, the cover company. At least she was still using the story we'd built. He was about my age, maybe a little younger. Dark hair, clean shave, a shirt that fit too well to be cheap but too plain to be expensive. No chain around his neck, no flashy watch. Hands tanned, some faint scars on his knuckles. Not soft hands, not completely. "Your boss must be a nightmare," he added. "Always calling, always changing things." My spine went rigid before I could stop it. Lena's laugh this time was smaller. "He's intense, but he's fair." "Fair," the man repeated, curious. "You sound like you're defending him." "I am." She took a sip of her drink, eyes falling to the table for a second. "He gave me a chance when no one else would." The music almost drowned her words, but my ears had learned to pick up whispered betrayals in louder rooms than this. "Lena, you're too loyal." His tone softened. "You talk about him like he saved your life." "He kind of did," she said quietly. My shoulders loosened a fraction without my permission. I remembered the file I'd read after that day in the office when she'd stood between my cousin and a bullet. Father dead when she was 15, mother disappeared, younger brother in jail, university cut short because someone had to work, debts, evictions, a trail of small, ugly misfortunes that no one movie would ever show. Most people with a past like that came to me asking for revenge. She came offering Excel sheets and a brain that wouldn't stop working. "You don't owe him everything," the man said gently. "You know that, right? You're smart, you're incredible, Lena. You could work anywhere, live anywhere." "Anywhere doesn't exactly line up to hire girls from my neighborhood," she answered. "You know how it is." "Maybe I do," he smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "But still, someone like him, a boss like that, he doesn't give, he trades." I leaned forward just enough to see his face clearly behind the curve of the wall. There was something familiar in the set of his jaw, a faint white line of an old cut near his temple. I searched my memory quickly, but he didn't light up any alarm yet. No obvious tattoos, no rings with family crests, no watch from one of our clubs. Lena shook her head. You don't know him. You don't either, the man said softly. Her fingers tightened around her glass. For a second I thought she might get up and walk out right then. Instead, she took a breath, let it out, and changed the subject. Tell me about your clinic. You said you finally got that permit. He brightened at once. We did. You would have laughed if you saw me arguing with those fools at City Hall, but we got it. We can treat more kids now, more old ladies with 12 types of pills and no idea what any of them do. Doctor, that's why his hands weren't entirely soft. That's why the scars on his knuckles were thin, careful, more like tools than fights. A doctor from her neighborhood. A man who fought a different kind of war in the same dirty streets I paid to keep quiet. My jealousy searched for reasons to hate him and found, annoyingly, very few. The waiter appeared at my elbow, making me pull back from the wall an inch. Señor Santos, your room is ready. This way, please. Behind him, I saw Emilio enter with one of the older guys, Nico, broad-shouldered, with grey just starting at his temples. Nico's eyes met mine across the din, asking a question without words. I flicked my gaze toward Lena's table, barely a movement. His attention slid there, sharp and fast. He took in the scene in one long look, her dress, the man, the way she leaned forward but not too far, the exit behind them. His eyebrows lifted a millimeter. A date, really. For a second, the absurdity of it all almost made me laugh. We were supposed to be making peace with a rival family, and I was standing in a restaurant about to lose my mind because my assistant wore blue instead of black and smiled at another man. Stay close to the door, I told Nico quietly as I passed him on the way to the back. If anything looks wrong, you move her first, him second, clear. He didn't ask why, he never did. He just nodded once. Entendido. That was my kindness, I told myself. That was enough. I was still in control. I was still the man who protected what was his, even from his own worst instincts. The private room was small but elegant. Heavy door, thick walls, only one window, high and narrow. A long table, weighted white tablecloth glowing under dim lights. Bottles of wine stood ready like soldiers on the sideboard. I walked around the space once, touching the back of each chair, checking the angles. The waiter hovered by the door. How many are you expecting, señor? He asked. So we can. 6 of us, I said. 4 of them. No staff enters the room after they arrive. You knock. If no one answers, you walk away. Understand? He blinked, unsure, then nodded quickly. She, señor. Good. I slipped a folded bill into his hand, enough to make sure he remembered that little rule when things got loud. Now leave us, and don't stand near the door, go clean something. He disappeared, more grateful than afraid. Voices filtered in from the hallway as my men took their positions, 2 at the ends of the corridor, 1 near the kitchen entrance, 1 outside on the sidewalk watching cars. Everything in its place. Everything measured. Rivera's car just parked. Emilio's voice came through my earpiece, low and calm. 3 in suits, 1 driver, same license we have on file, no extra tails. Copy, I said. Phone's off in 2 minutes. If you don't hear from me in an hour, call the lawyer. Use the number in the red folder. Emilio was silent for a beat. We both knew what that meant. Then, entendido, jefe. I took the small black box from my inner pocket, opened it, and checked the thin wire inside. A last resort trick, press this, the lights go out, chaos becomes my friend again. When I looked up, my reflection stared back from the darkened window. Behind my own eyes, I could still see the restaurant floor in my mind, Lena's hands wrapping around her glass, the doctor's head tilted as he listened, the life just outside my reach. You don't know him, the doctor had said. Maybe he was right, maybe she didn't. Maybe that was my fault. My phone, still on silent, buzzed once more in my pocket. Against my better judgment, against every rule I had for myself before a meeting like this, I checked it. A photo sent from an unknown number. The image was grainy, taken from outside through glass but clear enough. Lena at her table, laughing, my profile blurred in the background at the bar. a little red heart drawn around her face. No caption, just the picture. My stomach dropped, cold washing over the hot. Whoever sent it was close, watching both of us playing. I stepped out of the private room, so fast the chair nearest me rocked on its legs. Nico, I said into the tiny mic hidden under my collar. Status. Están tranquilos, he murmured back. They're calm, eating, talking, I'm by the fire exit, no one suspicious near. He paused. Nico, my voice sharpened. Correction, he said quietly. One coming in now, alone, leather jacket, no reservation, tattoo on the neck, a river with 2 guns. Rivera's mark. The corridor to the private rooms suddenly felt too narrow, the air too heavy. I walked toward the main dining area, each step measured, my pulse too loud. From the shadow of the hallway, I could see the entrance. The new arrival stood just inside, wiping rain from his short hair, scanning the room with the easy boldness of someone who never worried about where his next beating might come from. The tattoo crawled up his neck onto his jaw, the same design I'd seen years ago on a dying man's chest. His gaze slid over couples, servers, the bar, then landed on Lena. He didn't recognize me from this distance, but he recognized her. I saw it in the way his eyes brightened, in the little curl of his mouth. Not surprise, recognition. Interest, like he had been waiting to see her somewhere she didn't expect him to appear. In front of me, a waiter moved, blocking my view for half a second. When he passed, the Rivera soldier was already walking toward her table, hands in his pockets, a predator casual enough not to show his teeth yet. Behind me, a different waiter opened the door to the private room with a nervous smile. Señor Santos, he whispered, they are here, the other party is waiting for you. 2 worlds, 1 step between them. My hand tightened around the doorframe until my knuckles ached. If I walked into that room, I left Lena alone with a man whose family had killed for smaller insults than a late payment. If I stayed, I risked war with his boss before we even sat down. The Rivera soldier was 3 tables away from her now, she still hadn't seen him. The doctor was saying something, animated, pointing at the menu. She turned to him, laughing again, unaware of the shadow closing in behind her. I drew in a slow breath, feeling every old promise I'd ever made to myself collide at once. Never show weakness, never humiliate the loyal, protect what you can while you still can. The waiter by the private room shifted, nervously. Señor, he whispered, should I tell them you are? I watched the Rivera tattoo move closer to the soft curve of Lena's bare shoulder, then disappear behind a couple getting up to leave. I had a heartbeat to decide which door to walk through. And for the first time in years, I realized there might not be a choice that didn't cost me something I wasn't ready to lose. The waiter's whisper faded behind me as I stepped away from the private room door and back toward the light. The music was too soft, the laughter too bright, like the whole place was mocking the weight in my chest. The Rivera soldier was only 2 tables from Lena now, cutting between chairs with that loose, hungry walk I'd seen 100 times in 100 different bars just before a fight started. I didn't think, I moved. I stepped out of the shadows just as he passed the curve of the wall, exactly where I'd been standing minutes before. We almost collided. Perdona, he said automatically, hand brushing the inside of his jacket. My hand got there first. 2 fingers pressed hard against his ribs, right where his gun sat under leather. I didn't need to show it. The pressure and my eyes were enough. You lost, I asked quietly. His gaze focused, recognition snapping in like a switch being flipped. For the first time I saw a crack in his casual mask. Señor Santos, he said, didn't see you. He was lying. You don't walk into a place like this without looking for men like me. Behind him, 5 meters away, Lena lifted her glass again. The doctor was saying something about permits and corrupt officials. She smiled politely, unaware of the line of fire that had just shifted around her. You walked past the hallway. I kept my face relaxed, almost bored. Our meeting is back there. He followed my line of sight without moving his head. His eyes flicked to Lena's table for a fraction of a second, then back to me. That was all I needed. Got distracted, he said lightly. Didn't know you brought company, Hefe. He said the last word like a joke, like he knew it would sting. I leaned in just a little, until anyone watching would think we were two friends greeting each other, not two wolves deciding whether to bite. Funny, I said, your boss already texted me a picture from this angle. Surprise flashed, then smoothed over, so he hadn't known that. He likes to show off, the soldier muttered. New toys, new tricks. He sent me a heart around her face. I let the words drop between us, soft and heavy. You know what happens if he makes that personal right here, right now. The soldier's jaw tightened. His eyes slid again, carefully this time to Lena. She was cutting a piece of fish, laughing at something the doctor said about old ladies and their cats. My men were just shapes in the background, anyone else would miss them. But not this guy. His gaze bounced off Nico at the fire exit, off Emilio pretending to look at the wine list near the bar. He swallowed. I'm just the messenger, he said. Then deliver this message instead. My fingers dug a little harder into his side. He hissed under his breath. No one touches her. No one breathes near her without my blessing. You walk with me to that room, we talk like civilized animals, and when you leave you tell Rivera this: I can live without money, without territory, but if he makes me bury her, I let my smile show, dead and thin. Then nobody in this city lives easy again, not him, not you, not your grandchildren. His forehead beaded with a thin line of sweat. You threatening families now, Santo? He asked, trying to sound amused. That's not your style. Exactly, I said. It means I'm serious. You remember the last man who pushed me that far? He did, I saw it land in his eyes. After a moment he nodded once, a small bow. Understood, he said. Walk me to the room then, before someone thinks I'm here for the food. I let go of his gun and clapped a friendly hand on his shoulder, like we were old friends meeting by chance. We turned away from Lena's table together. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did at the corner of her vision and decided not to look. That hurt more than the risk in front of me. The corridor felt even narrower now, the walls full of ghosts and possibilities. Inside the private room, Rivera was already seated. He wasn't what people imagined when they heard his name. No gold chains, no loud suit. Just a thin man in a dark jacket, hair too neat, fingers stained with nicotine. His eyes were the only loud thing about him, sharp, restless, always calculating. Santos, he said, standing with open arms like we were cousins at a wedding. You're late, I was about to order without you. The three men behind him stayed seated. Good, they knew what they were and what they were. I sat at my end of the table. Emilio took the chair to my right, Nico to my left. The Rivera soldier closed the door, then stood behind his boss's shoulder, eyes down. For someone who wanted to talk peace, you're playing games, I said. Rivera smiled, showing small childlike teeth. Peace is a game, he said. We both know that, some pieces are more interesting than others. He snapped his fingers. One of his men reached into a folder and slid a small stack of printed photos across the table, face down. I didn't touch them. You like restaurants, Rivera went on, tapping the top picture with 2 fingers. Your taste has improved, glass walls, soft music, blue dresses. Emilio tensed beside me. I felt the shift in his breathing. Slowly I flipped the stack. The first photo was the same as the one on my phone. Me at the bar, blurred, Lena in focus, laughing, the doctor's hand halfway through a gesture. The little red heart was now a mark made with a real pen. The second photo zoomed in on just her. Her hair, her smile, the curve of her neck. The third had me clearer, my profile, eyes cutting toward her table. You got good angles, I said, my voice flat. Inside, something familiar and dark rolled its shoulders. You planning to open a photography studio? Rivera chuckled, pleased with himself. We share a city, Santo. We share streets, waiters, neighbors. Did you think I wouldn't notice when the Iceman grows a heart? Behind the joke there was something else, curiosity, maybe a little envy. For years, he continued, I thought your weakness was your past, your parents, that old bakery, your cousin who never learned to keep his hands off the cash, but look at this. He tapped Lena's face. Turns out your weakness is your secretary. I thought about the boy in the flour-dusted kitchen, pretending not to hear men deciding his father's fate. I thought about Lena's bloody blouse in that cheap office, her shaking voice as she argued for my cousin's life. I thought about the way she laughed with her head back like tonight, when she thought I wasn't watching. Careful, I said softly, you're using that word wrong. What word? Rivera tilted his head. A weakness. He smiled wider. Ah, so it's serious. He leaned back in his chair studying me. That's good. Serious means leverage. I don't want a war. War is expensive, messy. I want understanding. And understanding comes easier when both sides have something to lose. Emilio shifted, about to speak. I put a hand on his forearm without looking, stopping him. What do you want? I asked. The same thing you do. Rivera spread his hands. Not to die, not to lose money, not to have to explain to some woman at home why we didn't come back one night. He paused. And I want to make sure people under your protection don't become a problem for me. That girl, for example. He nodded at the photos. Smart, organized, she moves things. I see the signatures in the papers, the schedules. If you ever turn on me, she becomes your brain. So I need to know now, is she fair game? The room went very quiet. Nico's chair creaked as he leaned forward a fraction. His big hands stayed flat on the table, but I knew how quickly they could move. For years, I said slowly, we kept some rules. Unspoken but clear, no kids, no churches, no hospitals, no families unless they pick up a gun themselves. Rivera waved a lazy hand. Times change. They only change if we let them, I shot back. I sat down here tonight because I believed you still understood lines. Maybe I was wrong. For the first time, irritation crossed his face. We're not priests, he said, we're businessmen. No, I corrected. We are wolves pretending to be businessmen. The difference is simple. Wolves don't poison the river they drink from. He laughed, surprised. Poetic, I didn't know you read. I did late at night, when the weight of the day sat too heavy and I needed other people's tragedies to quiet my own. But that wasn't his business. You came here to push me, I said, to show me you know who sits by my side. Fine, you made your point, you have eyes, congratulations. Now I'll make mine, you touch her, you watch your own house burn from the inside first. One of his men bristled. Is that a threat, cabron? It's a promise, I answered without looking away from Rivera. I'll still come after your money, your docks, your men, all of that, but first, I'll walk into your sister's bakery, your nephew's school. He slammed his hand on the table. Enough. The silence fell heavy. He stared at me for a long time, then slowly he nodded. You think I don't have people I care about, he said quietly. You think your love story is special. I don't have a love story, I snapped too fast. Bullshit, he said almost gently. I saw your face in that picture, Santo. You look at the girl like my uncle used to look at his wife before they shot her in front of the butcher. You think I want that for you, for me, for anyone stupid enough to sit in chairs like these. He lit a cigarette, even though the restaurant forbade it. The smoke curled between us, thin and blue. You know why I sent you that photo, he went on. Not to scare you, to warn you. If I can see her from 3 different angles in 1 hour, so can someone richer, younger, hungrier, with less history and fewer rules. The next one won't ask for lines. He'll take whatever he wants. Something in my chest shifted. I hadn't expected that turn. So what? I asked slowly. You're protecting her. He laughed, really laughed this time, the sound sharp and ugly in the small room. Let's not go that far, he said. I'm protecting stability. And if that girl is your anchor, I have 2 choices, cut it and watch you go insane, or make sure no one else cuts it for me. He leaned forward. Here is my offer, we keep the old rules. No families, no civilians, no clinics, no schools, and yes, no secretaries. We keep business in business where it belongs. In return, you stop that thing you're doing at the docks. Emilio sucked in a breath. What thing? He said carefully. The little game with the customs men, Rivera replied, eyes on me. The containers that go missing for a few hours then appear lighter than before. I don't care how you clean your money, but when you touch my shipments by accident, that becomes my problem. I knew what he meant, and he knew I knew. We had both been circling the same rackets for years. The dock trick was my newest move, a way to skim off just enough to build something else. Those containers don't just go lighter, Rivera added. They go kinder. Some of them die in clinics I don't own. Some of them end up in food boxes for families that don't pay either of us. That's not your style, that's hers. He flicked his chin at the photos. Of course he would notice. Lena had been very careful, moving little pieces off the board, writing fake invoices, redirecting donations through shell companies I barely glanced at because they showed profit. But nothing in this city moved without someone like Rivera catching the scent. It bothers you, I said, that someone is doing good with your money. It bothers me that I'm not the one deciding, he shot back. You want to play Robin Hood, fine, just don't steal from my forest by mistake. I almost smiled despite myself. So we're arguing, I said, about who gets to fund the clinics. He tapped ash into a crystal glass. We're arguing about control, he corrected. Always, but tonight we can pretend it's about clinics, it sounds nicer. The room sat with it for a moment. Nico cleared his throat quietly. Hefe, he murmured, we can move the dock business, different pier, different names, takes a month maybe too. I ran a thumb along the edge of one of the photos, feeling the paper cut threaten my skin. If I said no, we would keep fighting in shadows, hurting each other until someone hit something we couldn't repair. If I said yes, I protected Lena, the clinics, the kids who would never know our names, and I let Rivera think he had won a piece of ground. Pride or protection? Power or kindness? The choice had never felt so sharp. I looked Rivera in the eye. We move the game, I said. Far from your docks, far from your books, but the rules stay. You break them once, even by accident, and I don't come talk next time, I just come. He held my gaze, searching for weakness. Deal, he said finally. He stubbed out his cigarette on the collector's wood like he owned it. For now. We shook hands across the table. His fingers were cold. Outside, somewhere beyond the thick walls, a glass clinked. A woman laughed, a fork scraped against porcelain. Life went on, unaware that two tired wolves had just agreed, for a little while longer, not to eat each other's children. The rest of the meeting was details, numbers, territories, the usual poison dressed as paperwork. My mind only half listened. The other half stayed in the dining room at the table near the back, where a blue dress turned slightly every time someone walked by. When it was over, when hands had been shaken and glasses raised and lies told with straight faces, I stepped out into the corridor and pulled my phone from my pocket. No new messages from her. For a second, a stupid, wild fear gripped me that I'd open the door and find the dining room empty, all tables clean, the whole place a hallucination. That's what our world does to you. It teaches you to expect loss at every turn. The restaurant had thinned out. The hour was late now. Some tables were empty, others held couples finishing coffee, eyes soft and tired. Lena's table was still there. The doctor was gone. She sat alone, jacket on her shoulders, fingers tracing the rim of an empty glass, her eyes on the door like she had been waiting. When she saw me, something complicated crossed her face. Relief, annoyance, guilt, something softer I didn't dare name. I walked to her table without hurrying, every step a negotiation between the man they feared and the man I didn't know how to be yet. Traffic, I said. She let out a breath that sounded too much like a laugh. You saw, she replied. I saw a lot. I pulled out the chair the doctor had been sitting in and lowered myself onto it. I saw you in blue, that was new. She glanced down at the dress, almost shy. You don't own my closet, she said quietly. You're right, I forced my fingers to rest, not drum, my temper liked to travel through my hands. I just didn't know you had that side of you. What side? She frowned. A normal one that eats in public without checking the exits every 30 seconds. I check every 15, I muttered. She shook her head, a small smile tugging at her mouth despite herself. How much did you see? She asked. Enough to know he's a doctor, I said. From your old neighborhood, that he got a permit for a clinic, that he thinks your boss is a nightmare. Her eyes widened. You were listening. I arched a brow. You've met me right. She opened her mouth, closed it, then looked down at her hands. I was going to tell you, she said. About the clinic, about him, I just lied instead, I finished. She winced. I didn't lie exactly, I just didn't give you all the information. In my world, that's the same thing. She met my eyes then, frustration and something like hurt flashing in hers. In your world, any man who looks at me too long disappears, she said. I didn't want that for him. Silence settled between us. Do you care about him? I asked, the words tasting like rust. She thought about it, really thought. I care that he remembers my name, she said finally. The one on my ID, not the one people whisper when I walk into a building with you. I care that he knew me before I wore these clothes, before I learned to talk the way you talk, to move numbers the way you move men. Jealousy flared, then faltered. Under it there was something I hadn't expected, concern. How did Rivera know about him? I asked. About you, about this place. Her face went still. What? She whispered. I took the photos from inside my jacket and laid them on the table face up. The candlelight flickered over them, over her captured smiles. She stared, color draining from her cheeks. He sent these, I said, and a copy to my phone. His man walked in while you were eating, he recognized you. Her eyes darted to the corners of the room, checking exits out of habit, my habit, learned over time, now hers. Are we in danger right now? She asked, voice low. Not tonight, I hesitated. We came to an agreement, our rules stand. Families, clinics, civilians, you are off limits for now. For now, she repeated flat. That's the best we ever get, I said, from men like us. Her fingers brushed one of the photos. Her thumb smudged the little red heart. So he knows I matter to you, she said. I tried to make that a secret. A bitter smile touched my mouth. Apparently I'm not as good at hiding as I thought. She looked up, studying me. I didn't go out tonight to hurt you, she said. Or to put us at risk. I was going to ask him for help, with the numbers you've been letting me move. There was no point pretending I didn't understand. The dock shipments, I said. She nodded, eyes dropping. I've been taking a little, she admitted, voice barely above the music. Not money, product, food, medicine, things that don't bleed when they go missing. Sending them to that clinic, to others like it. I know you see the reports, I know you let me slide. I just hadn't said it out loud to myself. I wanted him to help organize it, she continued, words tumbling now that the dam had broken. Proper intake, records, real doctors, not just neighbors with herbs and prayers. I thought if I did it quietly you'd have deniability if someone noticed. You could pretend you didn't know. She laughed once, brittle. But of course Rivera noticed. And of course you knew that's how this world works, nothing stays clean. She expected me to be angry. I saw it in the line of her shoulders, the way her hand flinched when I moved mine. I surprised myself. I moved the game, I said. She frowned. What? The docs, we're shifting that trick. New pier, new paperwork, away from Rivera's roots. I paused. The clinics stay. Her head snapped up. You agreed to that, she asked. He let you. We traded, I said simply. He keeps his pride, I keep you safe, you keep doing what you do, but smarter this time. No more stealing from his river. You only use mine, understood. Her eyes shone, but she blinked the wetness back before it could fall. You did that for me, she asked. For them, I corrected softly. For the kids in those clinics, for the mothers who won't have to knock on doors like my father did, and yes, I met her gaze, for you. Something in her expression slowly melted. The tight mask she wore even with me loosened, just a little. You're not supposed to be kind, she said. It doesn't fit with your brand. Don't tell anyone, I said. I still have a reputation to protect. She laughed then, really laughed, and the sound felt like oxygen in a room that had been closed too long. The waiter appeared at our table, hovering. "Pardon, señorita," he said to her, then glanced nervously at me. "We're closing in 10 minutes, do you need anything else?" I shook my head. "Just the check," I said, "and a coffee to go too." He nodded and vanished, relieved. We sat in the soft quiet. "You were jealous," she said after a moment, not a question. "Yes," I answered. There was no point lying, she already knew. "I wanted to break his hand when he touched yours." Her lips parted in a small, surprised "oh." "And you didn't," she said. "That's the part I'm proud of," I replied. "Why?" she asked. "Why not just fire me, or tell me who I can see, where I can go? Bosses do that, men like you do that." "Men like me," I said slowly, "die alone in big houses surrounded by people who are paid to pretend they care. I've buried enough of them, I won't be another one." I searched for the right words, ones that wouldn't make me sound like a boy in a kitchen again. "You remind me I'm still human," I said finally. "I hate it, and I'm grateful for it, both things are true." Tears actually reached her eyes this time, but she let them. "That's not my job," she whispered. "No," I agreed. "Your job is to keep my calendar straight and my enemies poorer than me, the rest is extra." We held each other's gaze for a long heartbeat. "You deserve a life that is just my shadow," I said. "Friends, dinners, dates, if that's what you want. I won't pretend I like it, I don't. But I won't punish you for wanting to feel normal for 2 hours." Her shoulders sagged with something like relief and grief mixed together. "He's a good man," she said quietly, meaning the doctor. "Naive, stubborn, he thinks he can fix our streets with vaccines and pamphlets." "Maybe he can fix some small part," I replied, "with a little help." "You're really going to keep supporting the clinics?" she asked, "even now that you know everything?" "I'm going to make you bring me every form," I said. "Every invoice, every name, so I know exactly how much of my sin is getting washed in those waiting rooms." She smiled through her tears. "That's not how confession works," she said. "I don't go to church," I answered. "I go to you." The coffees came, we stood. Outside, the rain had started again, softer this time, like the sky was tired. My driver pulled the car around. Emilio pretended not to watch us too closely from the second vehicle. Nico lit a cigarette under the awning, guarding the shadows. "I'll have extra security on you for a while," I told her as we walked to the curb. "Rivera knows your face now, others will too if they don't already." She nodded, accepting it. I knew what I was walking into when I took the job. "Not all of it," I said. "You learned some as we went." "That's how life works," she replied. "You take the bus, you don't know if it breaks down. You love someone, you don't know if they leave. You sign a contract, you don't read all the small print." "Is this your way of telling me you're quitting?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. She looked at the cars, the men, the city glowing beyond them. "No," she said, "not tonight, not while you still need someone to remind you you're human." The simplicity of it hit me harder than any gunshot had. I reached for her door, then stopped. "Lena," I said. She turned. I was wrong, I admitted. The words felt heavy on my tongue, I wasn't used to them. To read your messages from the shadows, to listen at your table, to explode inside my own head because you laughed for someone else. "You were scared," she said softly. "You just don't know how to do scared without violence." Her honesty cut and healed at the same time. "I'm learning," I said. "Me too," she replied. "How to live in 2 worlds without drowning in either." We stood there, rain misting around us. A whole city moving past without knowing that its balance had just shifted by a few quiet words in a small restaurant. "You'll text me when you're home," I told her. She rolled her eyes, but there was warmth in it. "Yes, Jefe." She slid into the car, the door closed. The convoy pulled away, red lights disappearing into the wet night. I stayed under the awning until they were out of sight, the smell of rain and tobacco wrapping around me. My phone buzzed. A message from her. "Home, no traffic, don't kill anyone before breakfast." I stood there for a long moment, the crooked smiley face glowing up at me. The boy in the bakery kitchen, listening to men carve up his father's soul, would never have believed this life. The guns, the money, the power, the blue dress, the girl who argued with him and didn't die for it. He definitely wouldn't have believed that one day, the scariest thing I'd do was let someone I cared about walk into a world I couldn't control, and trust her to come back. I slipped the phone into my pocket, turned up my collar against the rain, and walked into the dark, feeling the strange, heavy comfort of knowing I finally had something to lose. And for the first time in a long time, that didn't make me weaker. It made me careful. It made me kind. It made me dangerous in a different way.